Hello YouTube, welcome to the second part, I think, of the Black Country Brawl coverage from PTG. I'm Lucky Sixes, joined today with, well, I've called you SlaanRat, but I could have called you Double Master, I could have called you UK Rocky, but yeah, with Craig.
I was going to say, or you could just call me Craig, and
by your actual name.
I'd respond to any of those, to be fair.
Yeah. I was being kind with them as well, so I could have. There was a few others.
Yeah, there's a few that probably aren't PG that you probably don't want to get pinged for in the first couple minutes of a YouTube video. So yeah, fair play.
No, exactly. No, but thank you very much for joining us. Obviously, Double Master, you'll go into this one as well.
I am. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I took a little bit of a UB break after the veto event, so I didn't play in Wandering Wizards.
Yeah.
So yeah, coming back to it, sort of having had a little bit of a break, which is quite nice, and I'm not going to Froome whenever that is next weekend.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Been painting away feverishly for it, which.
Well, yeah, very much so, and we'll get to the reason why. The model count must be massive.
Spoilers.
Yeah. But anyway, as we said, yeah, we're here to talk Black Country Brawl. We will sort of go through the lists, but we won't go into detail one by one. We'll sort of pick out some interesting things we'll look at. But first of all, the army spread, pretty good, right? 40 people.
Yeah, it's every army represented, which is really positive. For example, the ETC didn't have that, so I mean, this is obviously a better event than the ETC. It's on the same weekend, so Jordan's obviously got a better event going.
Clearly. It's a better crowd, isn't it? That's all it is.
Oh yeah, well, there's a couple of nice people at ETC, but it's a different vibe. It's less of a holiday vibe, more of a chilled out vibe, I guess. But yeah, there's a couple of surprises, right? Like Dread Elves is the obvious one.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Only Amit. Mental. What's he saying that no one else has? I was going to say, is it just because they had a little bit of a remix and people are still working it out?
I still think they're really, really strong. And me and James on SlaanRat the other day briefly touched on Dread Elves at Froome, and again, there wasn't very many. Arguably, I think there was 0 at Froome.
I think there was 0.
Head.
I think, yeah.
And we were just saying that maybe people just don't have the models. They were never the most popular army in any edition of Warhammer. There was one point at which they were really strong, but a lot of people have Orcs and Goblins lying around, or have, vampires lying around in some state. Whereas Dread Elves, not many people maybe have Dread Elves lying around, and
yeah, it could be.
So maybe the models is one reason. The other reasons might be that people are just waiting for them to be set. Another might be that people have sort of thought, oh, everyone will tool against Dread Elves, so let's not bring Dread Elves.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
No, fair enough. Yeah, otherwise, pretty even spread. Vampires only one with Mikey, but that's... I'm quite sad personally for that, but I like the old Vamps. But otherwise, yeah, pretty even spread. Only really Warriors that have got... I think they've actually got 6 there, rather than 5.
It's Warriors and Infernals that with the 6 and the 5... But I don't think that's a massive surprise. They're both good books, strong books, and have always been popular in the UK. So it's never a surprise to see Warriors top of those charts in the UK.
Yeah, no, very much so. I mean, going straight onto it with Beast Herds to start off with. And yeah, so the Minotaur Warlord is in full force, and the Minotaurs themselves are pretty much there as a sort of stand-in. Ollie going to town on it. Just Minotaurs.
Yeah, and Ollie's been running similar stuff during lockdown on UB. He's running something similar at Froome. Again, I don't know if it's the exact same list or
there might be a fair amount of that, actually, I think.
I should have memorised all the Froome lists, but I don't have that brain capacity. But it's a powerful list that A, is quite fun to play because you can just shove it forward and see what happens, and B, it'll get results because Minotaurs are very good against the things they're good against, and the list has tools to deal with the things it's not good against. So, yeah, I quite like the Mino Heavy at the minute. I personally wouldn't play it. I'm a Centaur guy through and through.
Not enough. I would say not enough Centaurs. Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to cheat on my babies. So,
and Adam Lake, certainly with a Centaur Chieftain and a thing, is the king of the Centaurs, really, I guess. Oh, how do you prefer it? All in one or 2 lots? How do you like it?
In what way? In Centaurs?
Well, specifically said, if you want to answer that question for referring to anything else, then go ahead. But Centaur specifically, yeah. With Jeff having 2 lots of 6, and Adam going 1 big one.
Yeah, I think they're pretty different styles of lists. And I mean, to touch on Jeff's firstly, there's a few years ago there was a MSU Beast Herds list that was super popular. I played Jeff with it, so I was using the Beast Herds when Jeff had his Saurian Ancients, and this is going back to one of the Bristol events maybe 3.5 years ago.
Yeah, sure.
And it was pretty popular in like ETC, and then it sort of fell away because it's not reliable. It's a lot of hand grenades, and Jeff sort of always run a version of that ever since he picked Beast Herds up. So it's really good to see he's gone back to that.
Yeah.
And I think the 6s of Centaurs work really well in that style of list. If you're running the MSU style list, then Centaurs are a really good piece to get down the flanks and sort of make people turn around and face you. So I think for Jeff's list, the 6s are the right choice. And then on the flip side, I think for Adam's list, the 12 is the right choice because, you know, he's got the Centaur Chieftain that he sort of, well, that he probably wants to keep alive for a bit.
Yeah.
I don't really understand Ghostly Guard when you can have light armor and essence for 5 points less, 5 points more, I think, compared to heavy armor and Ghostly.
Yeah, well, you can even have Willow's Ward, couldn't you? Because he's technically infantry.
Yeah, but like the Ghostly Guard's just there to give him a good armor save, and light armor and essence gives you a 2-up. Heavy armor with paired and Ghostly is only a 3-up, and it's like for 5 points more.
Sure.
Probably could have got essence, but I think the big Centaur is the right choice for him there. And a big Centaur unit is a whole different unit to a small Centaur unit, and I know that's true for most units out there. And it definitely holds true for Centaurs. Like, you know, 10 Swordmasters are very different to 25 Swordmasters.
Sure,
so.
yeah. No, yeah. Any favourites out of those 3? Obviously, you leaning towards Jeff?
Yeah, for sure. I've always liked the MSU Beast Herds. If I was going back to Beast Herds at the minute, I'd be looking at a similar MSU style, maybe a few tweaks to Jeff's style of list. But I think Jeff's is my favourite list in terms of what I would want to use. I think Ollie's is the most directly powerful. Some armies just can't stand up to 2x7 Minos. A good example of that is VC. VC can't deal with that many Minos.
Sure.
And unfortunately for Ollie, there's only one VC.
Fair enough. So yeah, I'll stick with that. I'll go Jeff as well. I think just good player. Moving on, the demons. Marcus, Hugh, and Shane. Shane's sort of sent me some pictures or some working pictures. It's gonna be very nice. And then Marcus and Hugh, very solid players. Is that very similar to Marcus's Masters list? I was looking at that with. I suppose he had 3 lots of Hoarders. I know.
I think he had 2 Omens as well. I don't remember the Sentinel in his.
So
I might be completely wrong on that.
Sure,
I know Marcus has messed around with double Omen at other times, so I might be mistaken. But yeah, it does look like one less Hoarder unit. The Hope Harvester was there. The Blightflies were there, so it's pretty similar archetype to what he's been running. It's the usual Chaos of Marcus style where the board state has to get as complex as possible while Marcus gets as drunk as possible. Absolutely. And that's sort of his play style.
Yeah, it's on like a curve like that. Well, it looks like Dagon really rather than.
I agree what you said though about solid players, and Shane is a very solid player. I've known Shane since 7th edition Warhammer. Like, it's not like Shane is a newbie on the block who doesn't know what he's doing. You know, on his day he's a very, very solid player. So I think.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't realise. I just basically told him he was crap. Sorry, Shane.
I mean, I'm sure he wouldn't take any offence to it. But like, as a set of 3 players, all 3 very experienced, all 3 very good players, and on a very good army. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a Demon Legions breach the podium.
Ooh, okay, that's an early shout. I quite like the Blazing Glories. I saw them in Scotland when Hugh used them, and I'm becoming more of a fan of them for demons specifically. I think
it's interesting on how much you invest into them. Like the cloven hooves to them is really good, obviously with the impact hits, and Blazing Glory is one of those weird things where I agree they are really good. There's no denying that. But all the armies I use tend to have quite a lot of light arm shooting, and Blazing Glories are quite an obvious target for that.
Yeah.
And as soon as you've pinged 3 wounds off, they're quite a significantly less threat. But it does mean they take resources. But for 300 points, I get they've got a 5-up ward, and on Sundays demons just don't fill those 5-up wards. But you compare 3 bloatflies in Marcus's list for 310
Sure.
or 300 without the champ, I guess, to a Blazing Glory, and it's they are different units and they have different roles. But I think I would say that the bloatflies are better.
Okay.
And yeah, Blazing Glories keep popping up in lists, and it just shows how good the internal balance and the options are in the demon book. You can literally write a list from any of the units in the book and make it work.
Yeah, for sure. And because I've told him he's so bad, I'll go for Shane as best in race. We'll even it out like that.
I mean the Clawed Fiends in Shane's list are brutal. There's a lot of things those Clawed Fiends with unhinging draw are good against.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go for Marcus. I just think the chaos theory will come true.
I kind of hope it does. It's always a favourite when at events. Dwarves. Now, Dan, my man, Dan. Oh my goodness, big fan. When I look forward to seeing his names and everything, right from the start in terms of originality and things. Have you seen any sort of concepts of his list, by the way?
I'm just trying to get open the Frome list because I think Dan submitted an Orc and Goblin list for Frome.
This is different, and this is a very different army because obviously he loves his goblins for the Orcs and Goblins. This is I won't spoil it because it's awesome, but look out for Dan's army if anybody's going to think it's original.
I mean, I read this and it's amazing how just reading an army list, and bear in mind I'm an ETC player, play on the competitive side, not a great hobbyist. Having read Dan's list, I'm genuinely excited to see it. Yeah. And like some of the things that he's done in there are incredibly clever. Like for example, the bolt throwers, being the ballistic ordnance for large targets. Yeah, I think it's just clever, and I have zero idea what Dan's army looks like, but I've got some ideas in my head of where he might have gone with it and what it might look like. And I don't know if Dan owns a 3D printer, and that if he does, the options are almost endless. If he doesn't, I can't wait to see some amazing conversions. I guess. I've not seen it.
Yeah, so. No, good. I won't say anything because I don't want to ruin the spot. But it's worth looking out. And we'll perhaps have a few videos on it as well, and other lovely armies are the thing. Wes. Actually, we haven't said anything about his actual composition. We just said to look out for it. So Dan rocking. I mean. A couple of steam copters, steam bomber, fairly. I wouldn't say standard because again dwarves can do a few things, but 6 Whole Guardian seems to be a regular. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. It's got shooting, it's got the magic, it's got the combat. It's a pretty all comers, mixed arms dwarf list, which dwarf lists. There are a few that lean really heavily into concepts like Vanguards or Seekers.
Sure.
But mixed arm dwarf list means you always sort of have options in games, and I don't think, if I was to score the list, I don't think it would have any red matchups, but I don't think it would have any bright green matchups. I think it'd be, he'll have a chance in every game.
Oh, good. Wes, obviously, Cavalier's Tale, and make sure you go and check out his YouTube channel as well. So he's played dwarves before, quite a lot, but this one specifically has the Deep Watch, and again he's going for some steam copters as well. So steam copters seem to be
it's a very similar list to Dan's, having read it. Like you can match the units at like two bolters at the bottom, copters in the middle, Deep Watch, Whole Guardians, some shooting and call with a block of combat, and anvil and some characters. Don't know if those two talk offline at all because they are very, very similar lists, and if they don't talk, then maybe they need to have a pint of Bugmans together.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. James Butler going on to this is very much quite different actually. MSU, more MSU-y, with a big unit of greybeards anyway.
Mm-hmm. I quite like the MSU dwarf lists that are around at the minute. I think they're quite hard to write in a. Yeah. Every time I've tried to write an MSU dwarf list, because the idea does appeal to me, it comes out at about 6,500 points.
Well, that would win games. It would.
Yeah, you definitely would win a few games with that, and it would make dwarves significantly better. But like for example, the catapults are 300 points runecrafted, and for that you can get 2 units. And yeah, it's I like the MSU list, but you do have to make sacrifices. Like, for example, James only has one Kingsguard unit and one Grudgebuster, whereas in a lot of the MSU lists you see you have two of each of them, but then maybe no catapults. So
Yeah. And maybe sort of, is it a sign of like, yeah, I want to go MSU and then gone, you know, it's probably better if I have a unit Greybeards just in case as well. Is that?
yeah, potentially, and you know, he has invested in the two characters. Sometimes you see these MSU dwarf lists and they literally rely on the Greybeard panic bubble, whereas this has a BSB in it. And so I think having the Greybeards to sort of almost be a bunker or an anvil, along with the two shooting catapults and the rest of the shooting that comes in the shrapnels, isn't an awful idea.
Yeah. Any thoughts on best in race out of them? So we've got the similar lists or James Butler, basically.
I'm going to say James because I can't pick between the other two.
Right. No, same, absolutely. Dan and Wes will be equal points as well. We'll go as far as that in the predictions. Dread Elves, best in race, obviously goes to Amit. Well done, congratulations. Anything to say about his list in particular? Big unit of Obsidian Guard, which are very good. They're strength 6 ones, aren't they?
No, they're the Obsidian Guard are the 2 attack ones. The Judicators are the big strength guys. So, like Obsidian Guards in the current climate where Vermin Swarm are maybe going to increase in popularity and big units are a thing, are a really, really good shout. There is a couple genuine surprises in there. Like there's no what are they called? The core, the old Witch Elves temple.
Yes,
things.
militants.
Thanks. There's none of those in core, which is a genuine surprise.
Yeah.
Sorry, my computer's going to die, but I'll keep talking. The other surprise is from looking at the ETC list and the breakdown of what was and wasn't taken at ETC, and I get that ETC isn't the be all and end all. There were no Raptor chariots at ETC, which was a surprise when I read that stat because I think for 190 they are wonderful, and it's good to see Emmett's got 3 of those.
I quite like his Dread Prince. I was trying to work out whether, because he has got the Warlock Acolytes and the Shadow Riders, but I was trying to work out whether this is actually like a cowboy Dread Prince.
I think he can bounce between the two because the Shadow Riders and the Warlocks are fast cav, whereas the mounted characters are not. And I played James Brown in the veto event. He made an all cav list, and if you can plan in advance, you can bounce the characters between units for no loss. So I'm quite intrigued to see how he uses it. I think he'll bounce between the 2 units pretty efficiently, and then can cowboy out if he needs, can go in with a unit if he needs, especially the Warlocks who have the champion. And I know the Shadow Riders do as well, but the Warlock champion's a little bit better. It's a great cowboy. I think the Gorgons are a really odd choice.
Yeah.
So there's a couple cool choices in there, like no Temple Militants. Yeah. The Gorgons are a cool choice. So I'm intrigued to see how it does.
Yeah, no, same. And congrats on the best in race. Empire, and I think we got 4 lists actually. So there's one on top of this. Is it a surprise that this is the first army with giants included?
I didn't realize until yesterday that you could take the auxiliary giants, and I straight away looked up what the Vermin Swarm giant was, and there's a living bomb which is like a 2d6 strength 4 when he dies.
Oh, that's cool.
So I probably wouldn't have done it, but
but
it was
you
cool.
would have thought seriously about it.
It was cool to reopen that PDF and be like, these are things that exist in the game.
Yeah.
So I think some of the Empire Giants are really good. I think both the Big Fan of Sunna and the one that has a war machine that's got like basically a repeater gun on it is also really good. So I've not looked at the Giant supplement in quite a few months, so I can't really say if there's any others that I would expect to definitely see. Sure. An event that allows the auxiliary supplement.
I quite like the idea of a dwarf giant not being quite as big as a giant and having that in the thing. So, I'm not sure he's the best choice, but but yeah, no, I know certainly out of all the giants, Empire having access to a giant is quite cool, and a couple of these lists including that as well. So Luke Tranter obviously dips in between that and Beast Herds quite a bit. So with Empire, so knows the army pretty well. Jack has he played Empire a lot? And I know he dips between armies a lot.
I can't remember him playing Empire, if I'm honest. I might be totally wrong on that.
Yeah.
I know VC has sort of been his main focus for the last few years, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be awesome to see what he's done with the models and stuff. That'd be really cool, whether he's been doing that in the secret and wants to unveil. Darren plays Empire quite a bit. I played him at last Country Brawl, actually, that was around. Big Imperial Guard unit with presumably all the combat characters in as well, and loads around it just to shoot and chaff and stuff. So
yeah, I mean, Darren's list I think was also at Froome, and we basically said that you've got this massive block of Imperial Guard that no one really wants to touch.
Yeah,
and then the rest mostly shoots but can't fight. So it'll basically be, can people weather the storm of bullets and get into the squishy things, and then what do they do about this massive block in the middle?
Yeah, and the Imperial Rocketeers, they're only 24-inch, aren't they? So there are a few things that outrange that.
Yeah, I think that I really like Rocketeers. I think in the UK meta, where the majority of the meta is combat, I think taking something like Rocketeers that are only 24-inch range is totally fine.
Sure.
Most of the time, people will run into range of your guns. So
yeah, no, fair play. So if we actually look at so MSUE, Electoral Cav in Jack's list.
Yeah, I think most Empire lists rotate around some form of MSU, because, like with the orders, it works quite well. The smaller units in Empire are good value. Things like the Rangers, the Writers, I guess Steam Tanks to an extent fit into that sort of single model meta, and I think Empire do it quite well, where they have a couple of big units that sort of anchor the line, and then the rest is sort of small units that fill a role, be that shooting or be that support around the edges.
And I mean, to be fair, he's got skipped over it, I guess, but he gets props for having a dragon. Empire Dragon's pretty cool.
Yeah, no surprise to see an Obsidian Rock. Me and James have been rambling on about that recently. That Dragon should just be 25 points more expensive and come with MR2, and we can all get on with our lives.
Absolutely. But yeah, next list is Dave Blackmore with smaller Imperial Guard, more writers, lots of writers actually. I love the writers. They're so any sort of strength 4 AP2 shooting, I'd cream for. Honestly, that's my jam.
Get your rats out.
Yeah, man.
Rats or bombardiers, That's...
Well, yes, the bombardier. See, but we'll come on to that. We will come on, because there is a certain someone that's taken them. But yeah, so back to this. Obviously, you've got the writer Steam Tank. Looking at his characters,
it's the Inquisitors. I mean, me and Dave have chatted about lists, not particularly recently, and the Inquisitors are a huge. They're amazing for the Empire list. I'm surprised that there aren't any in the other list, if I'm honest. They are so versatile, and they provide such a threat to certain things that they are really, really good. And they also provide extra shooting, which on top of the writers means you can bounce around in these fast cavs.
Sure.
You can then rejoin the Electoral Cav and have this absolutely brutal combat unit. So his list is focused around the Cav in this list and the Steam Tank. The infantry are just sort of there for
some scoring
for cheering
and stuff. Yeah. Sure. So out of Dave and those three, what are we veering towards?
I'll let you go first this time, so I keep jumping in and then you keep agreeing with me. So
I know, right?
Maybe you're just copying me.
Absolutely, I've got no mind myself. I'm going to go with. I mean, I'm a dragon boy. I'm going with Jack and that, and I quite like that he's got the. I was going to go for one of the giant units lists actually, so I'm going with Jack because he's got a dragon as well.
I'm going to go with Dave. I know how solid the Inquisitors are, and I know that Dave does quite like writing lists, and his list will have quite a bit of honing done to it. So
sure,
I think it's a solid list, and we'll do well.
Fair play. On to love quite close to my heart, and one you've used fairly recently as well, the Highborns. Didn't fancy it again? No?
No, I've completely ditched them after the Masters. I literally, in my life, I've now played 8 games with Highborn Elves, 9 games with Highborn Elves, of which 2 were a warm up, and 1 was me and Trent had a rematch after Masters because we played in the army swaps. We did it from the other side of the board.
Yeah.
And other than that, I've not touched them. So
Okay. Because you hate them, and it was just to prove a point, right?
it was just because I didn't understand how a list worked, and I wanted to use that
Okay.
list, but it went surprisingly well. So.
No, absolutely. So Haristo, big highborn person. Although I was surprised he didn't use the orcs. I thought you'd bring them out for it. Did he take them to Frome?
I think he's on Highborn Elves for Frome.
Yeah.
It might be that I don't know if he's got the orcs painted up or not, and
Yeah.
I know he's been using the orcs a lot during lockdown, so it might have been that he was sort of focusing on the orcs for like UB and then back to Highborn Elves. But Haristo typically does set on an army for 2-3 years before moving on to the next. So it might be that he's just given the Highborn Elves the last run out before moving on to the orcs in real life properly, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, and he's definitely predicting monsters coming out with 2 big units of Lion Guard. A lot of chat in the HBE chat, Highborn chat about like using divination with Lion Guard and how good that is, sort of thing as well. So, very interested in seeing how this goes and whether the Lion Guard can cut the mustard. 2 big units.
I like the list. I think it's good. It's got a lot of high quality shooting, and then backed up by 2/3 very solid combat units.
Yeah. I mean, the characters are likely going the Queen's Guard for ML4, right?
Yeah, and as you said, like the div with the Asphalt Scholar is pretty good.
Yeah.
Even the Crown of the Wizard King, for that style of Highborn Elf list, there isn't really an awful spell to pick.
No.
Obviously, there's some that are absolutely amazing, like Awaken the Beast or Raven's Wing, basically the ones you can take on a Kenrig Tower. But there is also just any of the spells can have utility in this sort of list.
For sure. Like Alter Sight, all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Fred taking an Ancient Dragon, good man. I'm already want him to beat me in the best of race for that. But otherwise, Swordmasters, quite good to see them out.
Yeah.
And otherwise, pretty standard. Quite shooty. 30.
It's a lot of shooting. Yeah.
Has he got the bow as well, bow of Elu? Yeah, he has on the Ancient Dragon.
Yeah.
So this is going to just sit back and hope that you don't kill his Swordmasters and shoot you.
Yeah, I mean, it's got 3 units capable of combat. Like, Sea Guard aren't bad in combat. The Ancient Dragons, obviously, are quite good in combat. And the Swordmasters are a good combat piece. That is a lot of shooting, though.
Yeah.
30 Sea Guard, 20 Queen's Guard, and 3 sets of Reapers is... Especially with the magic setup, which is the same as what I had for Masters. So you got the Adept Pyro to give Flaming Swords. And then the Kenrig Tower just has an excellent set of spells to pick from and can heal the dragon. It's a cool list. I like it.
Yeah, same. My list going with literally just random units from the thing. Basically all the ones that I like. But trying the double Phoenix sort of jobby. And I wanted to try and get the Eagle in, but I couldn't fit in because I needed the Flame Wardens. It was basically my choice between them 2.
An Eagle or Flame Wardens?
No, the Griffin, sorry. The Griffin Lord.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant a single Great Eagle, and I was like, wow, that is...
It's a tough choice. It is a tough choice. Chaff or Flame Wardens, but...
The double Phoenix is really good fun. I think you'll enjoy it. Especially with the Kenrig Tower again, healing them and the hereditary spell, it is good fun. And obviously Master Cosmo can heal them as well, so you can keep them alive for quite a while. Even if they die and come back, you can heal them up pretty quick. It's good fun. And as I said, Lion's Guard are good. Flame Warden's are in a good spot as well.
Cheaper than I thought, actually, before I saw them. I was thinking about... Because 25 is a max, so Flame Warden are a lot cheaper than I assumed they were going to be when I went to go and check them out.
They're just really annoying for some armies who just can't get through that 4-up ward quick enough.
Yeah, and like you said, like the demons, if they pass their 4-ups, they're the only thing that grinds. So, crazy. The last Highborn list before we choose anything is Ryan's list. 4 lots of Reavers. I like that for core. I'm a big fan of that. And Swordmasters again with and the Lion and presumably Frost Phoenix to help them out as well.
Yeah, again, it's cool to see a dragon with the Order of the Fiery Heart on Pyro. I
Yeah.
think it's quite a fun choice. I haven't recently looked at how good it actually is, but maybe against, for example, Dread Elves and Vermin Swarm, it is
Yeah.
really good.
I did use it about 3 years ago. I used that. That's a very similar dragon, and because the whole model is flaming attacks, and if you can get I'd normally try alchemy actually to give him like the rerolls and stuff, but. He can be quite brutal, surprisingly brutal, especially with the Order of Fiery Heart giving him extra attacks as well for a spell. So
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, three of the four lists have Master of the Kenrick Tower, even
yeah,
though they tried to price it up,
yeah,
which
yeah,
just shows how Kenrick Tower is such
so
a
good.
good set of
Yeah.
spells to pick from.
He
So
can
that's
be
quite good.
fairly combat. I mean, if you look here as well, he's got the Destiny's Call, so he's not really going anywhere. Great
Yeah,
weapons going to be Strength 6, and with him having +1 to hit anyway, he's not bad in combat, and you've got all
no,
the spells to buff him up a bit. Yeah, it's almost like they've got to just change it, haven't they? Just get rid of it and try something new. Or
I didn't look at. I haven't looked at the ETC High Elf list yet, so I can't say how popular it is there as well. But if there is a trend of it still being heavily invested in, then yeah, maybe they should look at changing either what spells it can have access to, or something about it. But they can't just keep basically putting 10 points on and going, that'll fix it, and then
yeah,
just keep doing that.
sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll go again as it's my things. I'll completely back the Ancient Dragon because that's how I roll. I think the shooting is literally gonna cripple some armies. Like some armies, like I think the Minotaurs might struggle against this and with that much shooting. So yeah, I'm gonna back Fred, even though Haristo I think I'd say solid players and things. I think Fred is gonna just nick it, come out from nowhere.
Yeah, is that 10 quid for saying you still up for grabs, or is that
Well, I
still?
mean, yeah, always, but we won't tell the viewers.
I think it's quite a tight thing actually. I think all four lists have their merit and have good and bad matchups. So it's quite a hard one to say. I think I'm going to go for. I'm going to go Haristo. But I think it's a very tight thing. I think if those line guards get into the right matchups,
Yeah.
then happy days.
Yeah, absolutely. Lovely. So moving on from highboards, and make sure you've all got drinks with you, everybody. This is we're doing all right so far. Good man. Infernal dwarves. So probably one of the stronger armies we're saying out of a lot of them, and very very popular for sure. So yeah. The lists. What have we got? So I must admit, Infernal Dwarves is one of the ones that I don't have much. I don't play with, and I don't play much against because my groups. So I like Jake's because I've seen some models of what he's bringing. That's about it. That's about my knowledge.
I played Jake in the veto event, and I had to reread the Infernal book because it had had an update, and it wouldn't surprise me if people got caught out by Infernal Dwarfs this event because they are still. I mean, they're still relatively new. They've had changes, and I think a lot of people might just assume some of the stuff is the old version.
Yeah.
Similarly, I don't have loads of experience against the current Infernal Dwarf book, but it is a book that is consistently solid and has a lot of good options in.
Yeah.
I don't think there's many really bad choices in the book. I think if you want to write a list based around a certain idea, you can probably do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at it, the Infernal engines seem to be quite popular. I don't know whether that continues down. It doesn't. Good. Oh, that's nice. Nice to see Joe actually playing ID as well. Normally he's on that Macar, so that's quite cool. But yeah, so looking at it, blunderbusses, interesting. A lot of short range. What you're going to get with the ID, you're going to get short range, decent shooting if it have enough go.
Yeah, and you're going to have that backed up by probably quite a good magic phase and some very powerful and resilient combat pieces. And I think that's why ID is so popular. Is they compete in every phase and they're good in every phase.
Yeah.
And I think they're quite robust to mistakes in that if you, for example, lose an infernal engine to something bad happening, it doesn't actually matter that much. If you lose a block of infantry, it doesn't matter that much. Whereas for other armies, if you lose a whole unit, it can really scup you. I think Infernal Dwarfs are one of those armies where everything can work independently, does work better with synergies going on, but it's just a solid book all round. And like going down all the lists, like most of them have some shooting in the form of war machines and some short range shooting and some combat pieces and some form of magic. And so I think each person would sort of look at some of those lists and focus on the key things, like what lore has the Wizard Master taken. Obviously, for things like Elves, they don't want to see Pyro, whereas things like Warriors, you probably don't want to see Alchemy.
Sure.
So it's quite hard to sort of... I personally find it quite hard to pick apart ID lists because there's just a lot going on in the list itself.
Yeah. And I say, lots of unit choices with all of these three. We'll get onto the others in a minute. But, pretty... I mean, it's nice to see the Torah Commissioner come out with David's list as well. Deej's list.
Yeah, and like between both David and Guillaume, they've got a lot of Torque Anointed between the two, which isn't a unit that's had a lot of love recently. So that's good to see. But just going back to the veto event when I played Jake, it was hard. Like banning a core unit was genuinely a hard decision because if you ban blunderbusses, they take flintlocks. If you ban flintlocks, they take blunders. Sure. If you ban the vassal levies for some reason, then they can take their choice of it. And I think you see this in the list, like just these three lists alone. You've got Ziggurat regulars, blunderbusses, shackled slaves, vassal levies, flintlocks, shackled slaves, vassal levies with bows, flintlocks, blunderbusses. That's just from three lists. You've basically got each unit represented twice or three times, and it's again, it shows good internal balance, but it also shows that the book is in a very strong place.
Yeah, absolutely. And moving on to the other ones again, I think these are fairly different. I suppose you've got the Citadel Guard with flintlock axes as well, but these actually are slightly different to the other three, so they're almost paired in two sorts of ways. Big fan of the Giants as well for Joe. Kadeem Chariots as well. Yeah, I quite like Disciples. They got changed a bit. And probably are the most in terms of being changed, the most varied and things. So
them incarnates for sure. Like for example, the double incarnates in Kieran's list.
Yeah,
incarnates went through quite a significant change. If you don't know what incarnates do now after the update, it's probably worth looking at them because they are not what they were before. They're not amazing at grinding through huge blocks of low armored infantry. They are still very good. And there's a reason that Kieran's taken 2x6, but they are not the same beast that they used to be.
Yeah.
I just would like to say very briefly that Kieran did message me the other day and asked to grudge me. As a rule, I've never accepted grudges, and I never will because I don't want people picking on me. But just before Kieran outs me as having declined, I didn't really want to choose to play Infernal Dwarfs first round.
Fair enough. No, great. So looking at the lists, any thoughts on what we like more? We got double giant, double Kadeems, and then bits of everything really over here.
I do really like Kieran's list, which isn't the reason that I rejected it. He told me he was on ID and I said no, and then I read his list. But even though Kadeem Incarnates have changed significantly, I like them. The Tauric Enforcers you barely ever see, and he's really kitted them out, which is really cool to see. Quite a lot of shooting still. The Titan's quite cool, and he's gone for the Combat Titan.
Yeah. And
the core is almost as MSU as you can make it. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Kieran play something other than Rats as well. In the 7, 8, 9, 10 years I've known him, I've never known him play anything other than Rats. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does with it. I'm going to tip him for my best in race as well.
Very nice. So is he changing because of a new painted army because of lockdown, or is it what's the change?
I assume that he has painted up a new army during lockdown, but I also just think the new Vermintide book, for anyone that has played Skaven as long as myself and Kieran have, the new Vermintide book has split opinion significantly.
Very different.
I'm trying to remain diplomatic in that as a Skaven player, which is what I was, I really don't like the new Vermintide book, but at the same time it's new and shiny, so
sure.
That's why I've been looking at it. But I can see why Warhammer Skaven players don't want to play a Roman army. But yeah.
Yeah, sure.
That's a whole different topic.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one you have mentioned, or are you going to mention on SlaanRat? I think you've done it, haven't you? You looked at the new Vermin book.
Vermin Swarm.
Vermin Swarm, yeah.
Yeah, we have. Me and James both play Vermin Swarm, so we've dabbled and chatted about it a little bit.
Yeah, so if you want to hear more about that, check out the SlaanRat. I'm going to go with Jake. I think a little bit, obviously not knowing a lot about the lists, sort of scupping me a bit, but I quite like some of the, I really, really like the models that he's put out. I think he's been playing Idea quite a long time as well, especially through UB when there's a lot of chop and changing. I know he's stuck through it, so I'm going to stick with a relatively safe bet, I would say, in Jake for my...
His blog on the forum is excellent. If anyone wants to know more about Infernal Dwarfs and sort of the thought process behind each game, Jake is a very analytical player, but he also documents that quite heavily on the ID forum. So, yeah, it is quite an interesting blog. If you want to know what an in-depth game blog should look like, I would point you in the direction of him. He's the Kremlin on the forum, so if you just look up the Kremlin ID, you will probably find it.
Yeah, and there's always a soft spot for me with Jake because he was my first master. I'm sorry, Craig, but he was my first, and it will always be my first love in that regard.
Brutal.
But we'll move on from that straight away. There was that. Cool. Kingdom of Equitane. I believe there wasn't any Kingdom of Equitane at Froome. I think they were the other one.
I don't remember any.
I think they were the other one that weren't there. So it's nice to see them being repped. Ryan, we know plays them quite a bit. Pete, I don't know by the name. But in terms of lists, we've both rocking the green light.
Yeah, that was the first thing I saw when I looked the other day. Is the Green Knight there, and it was double yes.
Yes, so we're very happy on that. Looks like we've got all Cav versus sort of mixed a little bit, especially with the fairly big 25 Knights of Forlorn and Reliquary going in there. So won't play too different because obviously Knights sort of looking to hit hard and not very long. But either way, even the Grails, if you sort of swap the Grails for the Forlorn, they sort of act as a similar sort of unit.
Yeah, and like they're both running Wizardmaster Druidism. Pete's got the Hippogriff, whereas Ryan's just on a horse. They've both gone for the Castellan Bannerman chaff piece that is sort of becoming popular.
Yeah.
But like the whole foot guys to the Knights Forlorn and the Scorpions are pretty unique compared to ETC. There was only 3 at the ETC as well, so it's not like they're super represented, but everything at ETC was mounted and there was no shooting. Whereas Ryan sort of, I think Scorpions are great value for their points. I think they're really, really good value at the minute. And Knights Forlorn, it's good to see them back. They sort of had a spell of popularity a couple of years ago. Not really seen them since, so I'm intrigued to see how they do.
Yeah, no, same. I'll go first, and I like the All Knights. I'm going to go All Knights. Both are my favourite list because it has the Green Knight, but the All Knights and Hippogriff is where I'm going.
I was going to go right. I genuinely was going to go right, and I'm not just saying that to be different.
Good.
Yeah.
No, brilliant. Cool. Moving on to the Ogres, and we'll skip straight to Tanker, New England Captain, and specifically the Bombardiers. A unit I do like, Strength 4 AP2, but on paper they're much better than they are I've ever seen. And I'm very interested to see if this works, because I don't think it will.
I used Bombardiers. Well, I used Ogres in the Veto event, and I lent quite heavily into Bombardiers in, I think it was 4 of the 5 rounds, maybe 3. I think Bombardiers are a very good utility piece for Ogres at the minute. I think they've got better as time's gone on. I agree they're much better on paper than they are in real life. They need a Torm or a Pyro Wizard, so I would lean towards Torm for the -1 toughness, personally.
Yeah.
So I think this list will work. I think there's issues with this list. Tanker knew that I played Bombardiers most of Veto and then hasn't chatted to me about his list, even though we chat about lists quite a lot, which is quite strange. So I think there's a couple of things I would have changed in the list, but like for example the crossbow with Viper's Curse, if that was pistols with Viper's Curse, I think that is the right choice. The Bombardiers are a good choice at the minute. A single Thunder Cannon, sure. I think taking either of the shooting chariots is fine in the Bombardier list. And then unsurprised to see the triple Slave Giant alongside. So I think it's a decent list.
Yeah.
I agree that Bombardiers are better on paper. But I also think there'll be 1 or 2 games where Tanker Dice just show up and he rolls 36 shots, 36 shots, and 36 shots.
That's it.
And kills 108 models in a turn.
You've done the maths before. You've not just added it up. Anyway, otherwise, I mean, it's a solid list. 12 bruisers, the giants, and as you say, like having like the Khan and stuff like that in there it's a good list anyway. But I'm very interested to see that concept and Bombardiers and how effective they are. Looking at other lists, Jack, Merc Vets. Well, they've both got Merc Vets actually, but we've got double Rock versus a bit more of everything. I think is safe to say.
Yeah, and there's some interesting things in Jack's list. Like, for example, a Great Khan is... They're coming back in popularity at the minute, and the kit on it is quite interesting. It's quite different. So I think it's quite a good kit on that Great Khan, to be fair. Scrapults, I'm obviously a fan of. Tusker Cav are a really up-and-down unit. I think they have a lot of potential in-game. Like, quite often, the ones I use just flubbed all the time. So I think it's quite a cool list. I think... It'll give Jack options in games because he's basically got 4 units that can outfight most things in the Tusker Cav, the Merc Vets, and the Bruisers. Yeah. And they're all pretty quick. So even like the Bruisers are movement 7 with Swift Stride, assuming that's where the BSB goes. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah. I'll go first on this. I, as much as I love the Rocks, they always seem to be dealt with. So I'm gonna lean towards Jack, especially as I've literally just said the Bombardiers won't work. So Jack is my pick for ogres.
As an aside, it's great to see 2x8 saber tusks in an ogre list that isn't one of my own. So fair play, Dan. Annoyingly, I'm gonna back Tanker. Tanker Dice with 18 Bombardiers is not what anyone wants to play. So I'm going to go that way.
Fair play. As I say, I would quite like it to work because I do like that sort of thing, but I'm not sure. Anyway, what do I know? I'm not England captain. So Orcs and Goblins, over to this. I mean, the first thing I think, because I used to more elite armies actually, is that how much you can actually fit in these Orcs and Goblins. Oh my goodness! If you look at Ben's list, how many models is that? Blimey, that's a lot.
Yeah, and I think Orc and Goblin lists, I agree you get a lot, and a lot of those things are small threats to a lot of things, and then those small threats add up. Like, I know Ed, who isn't on this list document, I know Ed was a huge fan of scrappling wagons, whatever they're called, the 80-point ones, and they're a significant threat to a lot of units, and they're 80 points, and you're like, for 240 points, there's 3 of them going around, and you're like... I've got to deal with them, but that is literally a 20th of the army. So
it's like the wrecking teams as well, and all them stuff,
exactly. I quite like Orc lists at the minute. They're all pretty varied. Yeah. The internal balance on the Orc book has been really good for a while now. So I think anyone that's started Orcs during this time has a great wealth of choice and of internal balance to pick from. Like you can go heavy into trolls, you can go mounted, you can go shooting, you can go Orc core, Goblin core, you can go MSU, you can go Iron Orcs. Like the internal balance is really, really good.
Yep. No, I'd agree. And I mean, Splatterer seems to be the thing of choice. Probably again because you're saying about how bigger units are coming back, and that sort of thing. So it's a safe bet. Ali going the double trolls is pretty cool. Just stay in bubble.
Yeah, double trolls is a little bit of a risk, but I also there's some armies that just can't deal with double trolls. Like I'm trying to think if I've put anything flaming in my list, and I don't think I have. So
yeah, I've got flame. I've got flame Phoenix. So I'm not sure he could deal with 16 trolls.
Exactly. And I think the only issue with double troll at the minute is that snipes are still quite prevalent in the game through evocation and Cosmo and occultism, I guess. But that's basically the only issue with trolls is that, and I think otherwise trolls are amazing value for 8s.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So looking at these three, Rory obviously got a nice list with the double reckon team as well, and the biggest unit of Ed Bashers.
Yeah, common
Yeah.
orcs though, which we noticed the other day looking at Frome lists, was that a lot of the Ed Bashers are now commons rather than ferals, which
Yeah.
is quite interesting.
Is that just because of the lack of any sort of defensive thing on the ferals then?
Genuinely not sure. Like, I don't know the points difference.
Sure.
I don't know how bad Frenzy actually is at the minute. So yeah,
Yeah.
it seems to be a common trend. So it's
Cool.
quite an interesting one.
Over to you for your pick of the lists. So are these three?
I am gonna go for only for Rory because like the mounted Ed Bashers with the general are a really hard unit to contain. The Nasher Head's a really good little unit. The shooting means it's pretty good at range, as is the Wizard Master. So I only know Rory, but I don't think there's much in it. And
No.
I think Ali's double trolls, if he hits the right matchups, it's a very good list.
Yeah, and very for the same reasons with the double line guard for Hersto, for example. If it does get some of the things it just can't deal with it will just run over. I mean, it's not just that, but that's what's going to take your focus, isn't it? I quite like Ben's just sheer amount of stuff though. So no, I'm going to go with Ben. I think there's too much stuff there. And Skull Fetish, I think, is an awesome thing to have.
Skull Fetish is great.
With
Yeah,
that
I
sort
agree.
of list. So I'll go Ben. But like you said, not much in between. Saurians, two lists. Warren rocking it, and Skink Cloud plus monsters, right?
Yeah. I'm not convinced by the two laws on the Slan, but sorry, Quattle. I think Div Pyro is a slightly odd choice, but anyway, it's a cool list. Like as you said, it is monsters with a Skink Cloud. You've got the Saurian Warlords on the Raptor as well,
Yeah,
so you've
the
effectively
cowboy.
got four monsters more or less. Sorry, five monsters because there's two Warlords. So five monsters and a Slan and then a Skink Cloud, and it very much is a classic 8th edition list. So yeah, I obviously quite like it.
Yeah, Warren's quite good. I mean, it's very, very precise as well. I've played him a few times, and I think he's 2-1. Damn it. Yeah, so it's very good. Simon Kymans, not Cayman, or is it Cayman? I don't know.
I would say Cayman, but
Cayman.
I'm probably wrong. So.
Rocking the Caymans. So loads of monsters. I quite like it.
Yeah, he submitted something similar for Freem as well, and no Quattle's obviously quite interesting. And we chatted the other day about his character setups and the BSB and the general and how they're set up, and both are quite risky in that Cayman and a Scarvet probably are going to be in fighting units, but neither of them have any defensive kit. So I'm intrigued to see how he plays with it.
Is it only 3 spells, or am I missing something? Is some tablet give you more?
Three on the Palanquin, because you get learn spell number 1 for free, and then the Rod of Battle on the Cayman. So it's 4 spells, all based around combat buffs.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at Healing Waters, Flesh to Stone, Rod of Battle.
Oh no, sorry, he's got the Stidge. So Stidge adds a couple of spells.
Oh yeah, and that one, and Awaken the Beast and Swarm. Yeah,
sure.
so 6 spells in total. Yeah.
Yeah, is that decent enough? Fair play. I want the Caymans again, probably because of a matchup thing. Probably in single, if you get the right things, you can do it. So I'm gonna go Simon, but only because I'm really bitter that Warren's 2-1 up on me.
I'm gonna go Warren because it's an 8th edition Lizard Men list.
No, fair play. Cool. Sylvan Elves. Nav, the People's Master, right?
Unbelievable. I wasn't there the year that Nav won Masters.
Is that it?
I was at Malifaux Masters instead, and that's one of my biggest life regrets is letting Nav win Masters.
But yet here he is rocking the Sylvan Elves. I've got a game against him tomorrow, so if you can tell me how Elves win, that'd be great. Yeah, so I mean, both with some Wild Huntsmen. Blade Dancers seem to be pretty popular. They're so good, aren't they? There's one of those units that surprise you, really.
that Chris's list is so different to a standard Sylvan Elf. 21 Wild Huntsmen.
Oh yeah,
You know, Wild
3
Huntsmen do
units.
terrify people, and if you're gonna commit to them, why not take
Mm.
21? Even like the 40 Forest Guard in core is quite different, and with Sylvan Blades as well rather than spears. And then I'm really intrigued to see how that list works. It's really original. So fair play, Chris, for coming
Nice.
up with that.
Yeah, it looks like it's got 4 characters on spear. Oh no,
Three
the
on three on
BSB
horse.
isn't. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Oh, two on horse. Yeah, you're right. I
But
like
yeah,
it.
so most of the characters are going in the Forest Guard, you'd imagine, or
Well, there's two on horse. So the two
Blade
on horse will
Dancers.
fly around with the Wild Huntsman or the Heath Riders.
Yeah, yeah.
The characters could go in the Blade Dancers as well, though. No, they can't join them. Never mind, ignore that. The characters probably are going in the Forest Guard.
Yeah, you probably got just everything dancing around, right? And then
I'm,
it's just
I'm
block
confused as to where the Druids go in that, though.
because there's no
you got
bunker,
four-
is there? Yeah.
Yeah, you've got 40 Forest Guard who probably want to fight. So therefore, you probably don't want your two Wizard Masters stood out front.
Is
so
that Dryads unit, even though it's 25, a bit of a bunker for them?
they can't join the Dryads.
Of course.
So, no.
So no,
I
absolutely not.
think they can only join the Forest. I'm pretty sure they can't join Blade Dancers off the top of my head. So I think they can only join Forest Guard, which I don't really know how that works with the rest of the setups. Apart from that, I think it's quite a cool list. I'd maybe just like to see a small bunker for the Wizards.
Yeah.
So that they don't have to stand in a combat unit.
Sure. But otherwise, yeah, very cool. I mean, Nav's 14 Forest Rangers intrigues me. I guess is that similar to your Line Guard in the Masters? Is that what it's used for?
The Lion Guard were just there to carry Banner of Becalming round. I think 14 Forest Guard are. I don't really rate Forest Guards Forest Rangers in general. I'm not really sure why you'd take 14, especially at like 268 points. You can get a lot of good stuff in a Sylvan Elf list for that many points. So,
but I mean, probably his big things are the Thicket Beasts and the Blade Dancers, right? It's a big, much bigger unit.
And the rest is basically just avoidance, and the Forest Rangers are probably there to score. So it looks like an avoidance list.
Yeah, it will do what Sylvan Elves do.
Yeah, I think one of the surprises from these two Sylvan Elf lists is no trees. I think Tree Fathers are in a really good place at the minute. And now that you can take 3 of them as well, I'm genuinely surprised to see 0.
Yeah, a unit of 6 Thicket Beasts without any BSB or anything like that as well is an interesting choice. But yeah, worth seeing. I guess we're probably going to agree because you've said it, and I like Wild Huntsman, but Chris for best of race.
Chris's list is really cool. I do think I am going to pick it, but I do think it could struggle if people have tech to deal with Dread Elves. Then traditionally they've probably tech to deal with things like Wild Huntsman, Blade Dancers, and Forest Guards. So I think he could struggle in a couple of matchups where people have got anti-Dread Elf features built in.
Sure. And and again, it's mainly mind games that I'm betting against Nav because I'm playing him tomorrow. So on to the next. We're getting quite there, guys. So well done if you've got this far. UD. So UD are a weird army. I know Luke has stayed with him for quite a bit. Is Chris quite big?
Bondi's
UD?
been playing him quite a while. Yeah. Definitely most of lockdown. I know he was on Sylvan Elves before that, and I'm not surprised people move away from Sylvan Elves after a while. But UD is, certainly when I would say, what's Bondi bringing, it'd be UD based off the last 12 months for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I big Luke with Luke. I really like the Colossus. I played against them a few times, and they surprised me how good and resilient they are with all the UD healing and things. So I really like that.
Amusingly, I think these two are the two UD at Froome with the exact same list.
Oh, are they?
So there's a lot of best in race up for grabs between these two in the coming weeks. Where, if somebody wins 2-0, then the other person should
bragging rights. Is that it?
Exactly.
They should bet now.
Well, I was going to say if somebody loses 2-0, then when the winner passes away, they should get buried in the same pyramid. But I think that was maybe taking that analogy too far. So
yeah. Sure. No, I like it though. I'm going to go Luke, I think, for this. Again, mainly for the Colossus. both got cataphracts. The Reapers are quite cool, but no,
the
Colossus.
thing with Bondi's list that we missed on first reading, which we did go back and address, is that both units cataphracts have underground ambush.
Okay, yeah, sure.
So all of Bondi's list that starts on the board is the Reapers, the Skeletons, the Chariots, and a lot of magic. And so you're running at this list that has effectively 4 units.
Yeah.
The Reapers can obviously operate quite wide. So you've just got Chariots and Skeletons that you're running at who are pumping out magic, and then suddenly 8 snakes appear from the ground. So James wasn't a fan. James was like, well, what if the cataphracts don't show up? And I was like, it's a dice game. What happens if nothing happens with any army? Like, you can't rely on that. So yeah, I like Bondi's list. The magic with the Arc of Ages and the Evocation and the Cosmo is absolutely brutal. Especially, like, for example, if he plays Ali, the general will probably get sniped very, very early on. So, yeah, I really like Bondi's list. I don't think there's much between them, though. I think
sure.
Luke's got like 3 monsters in the Double Colossus and Shar Guardian. They're really good.
Yeah.
So I think they're both good lists.
No, cool. So we've got 3 more, I think. Nearly onto you, mate. Nearly onto you.
Almost there.
So the master of vampires, especially for this one, Mikey, solid vampire player is going to like it. I think. What we're saying is this. Did he have vampire spawn in Masters? I don't think he did.
No. Didn't.
Yeah, that's the big one. I've played with him against him when he had Gas and some Vampire Knights, so I guess he's trying out something different.
The Vampire Knights are a good unit, but they are very prone to fluffing their lines. You've got 10 very high quality attacks, and when you're rolling that limited pool of dice, bad things do happen.
Yeah.
So I'm not too surprised to see they've dropped out. It does give him a slight issue with scoring, but fine. Like, if that's at the expense of getting a much better list, then so be it. And Vampire Spawn are a very good unit for their points. Like, you compare, for example, 4 Winged Reapers for 620 or 8 Vampire Spawn for 670, and
24 wounds is a lot, especially when you can grow them back at a decent rate as well.
Yeah, you basically have to drop them quite quickly, and he's got 2 very fast units in the Spawn and the Reapers to run wide, and then everything else in the middle, especially with the Cadaver Wagon now, the gas is super solid. He has changed his magic setup, which is quite interesting. He's always been running Alchemy Evo, because then you can double down on reroll to wound from Glory to Gold and Spectral Blades.
Sure.
And a lot of his magic setup has been based around, I'm going to get reroll to wound. There's not much you can do about it, but I guess Perception of Strength or reroll to wound might be his new route to doing that. So, yeah.
Oh, well done for Best in Race. Vermins, yay, we're finally here. The Skaven that aren't really Skaven anymore.
I accepted they are Vermin Swarm.
Okay.
Now that I had to write a list with all the new names, so
yeah, sure. So, I mean, looking at the Vermin Swarms without giving too much away, your battle plans and everything. 2 Stygian Earthbreakers, liking that unit.
I think the Arena Beasts are better. But anyone that knows my playstyle as someone that sort of doesn't really like blocks will know that the Vermin Swarm issue presents quite a few issues with that style. So I very much leaned into the tunneling mechanic, which I have mixed opinions about. I genuinely am not convinced this list will work, and I've not played any games with it. So
a good reason to take it to a tournament. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a good reason to paint up this many rats without having played any games. So,
I mean, we were talking earlier about Orcs and Goblins having models, but I mean, blown out of the water, right?
I think Sean's list has a lot more models than mine. I think I'm quite model light because I've gone for quite a few single models and stuff. But I'm intrigued to see how the list works. I'm intrigued to see how the tunneling affects games.
Yes.
I said I think Arena Beasts are incredible value, and the 7 Vermin Swarm lists at ETC, all 7 have Arena Beasts, and there's no Earthbreakers. So I think the Earthbreakers will give me options to play in the style that I like, as in quite wide. But there's 10 points difference, and I think one is significantly better than the others.
No, sure. And I mean, with Sean as well, looking at his 15 Fetis Brutes, will be very interesting to see that on the table. It's not and it'll be 3 wide, won't it? Because of the way they work. So that'll be a really interesting look, I think, on the table.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, even the small units of 6, you can go 2 wide, and all 6 can fight, and they're quite a versatile unit. I think both of our lists are sort of like almost one of everything, and just take what maybe some of mine is just what I had painted up already, and some of it is what I wanted to paint, and
what intrigues you as well.
Yeah, exactly, and there's a lot of different mechanics you can explore in the Vermin Swarm book, from like without number to the unstable to the the absolute shooting maximum, and trying to rely on Callus. And tunneling is just one of those mechanics. And then Sean's gone for a mixed arms approach, which is another of the mechanics where you do have this mixed arms of the Mamillos and the Fetus Brutes hitting really hard, alongside some shooting, some big units in combat. Like Sean's 3 core units of 50, 45, 45. When they're half in combat casualties for combat res, that is sticking power. So I think that'll be hard work for people to break through.
No, absolutely. So do you back yourself is the question.
Yeah, I sort of have to, don't I?
Yeah, I suppose.
So I will back myself, but I'm going into the tournament. I won't have played any games with Vermin Swarm, so I'm sure I will get things wrong. I'm sure I will learn things. I'm sure I will spot mistakes in my list. I've already spotted 1 or 2 things that I would like to change about my list, if I'm honest. So I'm intrigued to see how it plays. I'm intrigued to see if I can fit my play style into this new book, and not just a wasted 5 days worth of painting. But we'll see.
Well, if you've done it in 5 days, fair play. I'm sure many people will take much more than 5 days to spend on Vermin Swarm.
It's just the basing to go now, but I don't know how I'm going to base them. I haven't worked that out yet.
Right. Any tips? Put it on the comments. I've got to back you, mate. I think the tunneling is going to catch a lot of people out. I think Vermin Swarms anyway will, but it might catch you out, to be fair. But it might also catch a lot of other people. So I'm going to back you as well. Warriors. Now I believe there's 6 lists. I'm just going to check very quickly. Yes, 6 lists of the Warriors. So the most popular have been fairly popular at virtually every tournament going around. People throw away comments like easy mode, etc. with Warriors, but I mean essentially they can be just a get up and punch sort of lists, and that's what you sort of see a lot.
Yeah, I've said it about a couple of the other books. The internal balance is good. The book is solid. It's in a good place. I also think for people that are into this hobby, that maybe either just new to the hobby or aren't massively into the hobby side, Warriors of Chaos can be, I'm not saying they always are, before any people that have a well-painted Warriors army hate on me, Warriors can be a very quick army to buy and paint up. Like the start collecting Warriors box GW did about a year ago had a unit of Warriors, a unit of Knights, and a character on Karkadon who can be, chosen Knights or a character or a chariot, whatever you want it to be. And 2 of those, and suddenly you've got like 3,000 points. So it's a good army to start with, but it's also an army with so many options that once you're sort of into the army, you can try out everything from the random move heavy build to Feldrax to Knights to there's lots of options in the book. I think it's an interesting book,
and that's sort of like seconded. I mean, just by looking at this first page of Warriors, really, you got the triple Sorcerer Adept, which I very very like, and versus the triple Barb Chief, and then the Doom Lord. So
on a Doom Lord on a Behemoth, which big points for that.
Yeah, man, I mean, Burn important as well. So he just shoot him. Don't do anything close quarters. But I mean, even going down into the list, they're all very very different. The Ledger of Souls, double Feldrak, double Forsaken, one, really really different. Any sort of particular points about these before I go on to the next ones?
I think you sort of nailed it in that they're so different in those lists. Like, even if you just look, I know I keep harping on about core and going, oh look at the cores being different, but Kevin's got all Barbarian core, Leggy's got a massive brick of
Zealot's banner, great weapon,
the
warriors.
greed. Yeah, I was trying to spot the path to greed, and then Matt's got the MSU core, and it's like, well, yeah, and then it carries, as you said, it carries on going down the list. Like 2 Forsaken Ones for Matt, 2 Feldrak Elders for Leggy, 2 units of Chosen Knights for Kevin. So all the lists are cool. I think the Warriors, you know what you're going to get. They're going to try and outfight you.
Yeah.
There isn't, and they're going to try and outfight you with a solid magic phase backing them up.
So, I do like Leggy's list. I know it's I think he's spare player. I'm not sure whether he's actually I could quite like the barbarian chariots and the big brick of warriors probably over. Especially they've gone up to 25. You can have them, can't you, with a thing rather than 20. So I do quite like that. Although I'm very interested to see how the other ones do. Going on to the second 3, again a massive mix really. I really like Nick's double herald. I've seen it played a few times. They're not. I can't work it out. I play one in my warriors. I can't work out whether they're good, but I like it.
They're very expensive for what they do. But
yeah.
I mean, I won't give away. Again, Nick was at Froome, and me and James gave scores for originality and power. And my highest combined score went to Nick, and it wasn't a particularly close thing. I love Nick's list.
Yeah.
I think it looks great fun to play with. I think it'd be great fun to play against because it is a bit of a challenge, but also Nick has to play it well. It's not just like push forward.
Sure.
You will see those Lust Warriors fleeing. And as you said, Exalted Heralds are good. They are not a default gimme piece where you can just do whatever you want with them. They have to be used in the right way and carefully. Yeah. And if they're used that way, they can be very, very good. I'm genuinely hoping somebody tables me within half an hour and I just go sit at Nick's table and watch his game, because I think of all the lists at the event, Nick probably, and it was the same for Froome, Nick has my favourite list of the event.
Okay.
I
mean, not just lazy and hasn't painted many models, no?
Well, it goes back to what I was saying, right? In that list, if you...
Yeah.
I mean, the two approaches. If you have a 3D printer, you can probably print that in 2-3 days without much issue. If you want to buy that list up from scratch from any miniatures company, there's some really cool conversion opportunities. There's some really cool modeling opportunities for the monsters, and it won't take that long to. I haven't seen Nick's army, so he might have spent years painting it, and it looks amazing.
Yeah.
But you can paint that up. I reckon I could paint that list in a day.
Oh, nice. Well, maybe later on that's a challenge right there.
If anyone wants to buy me if anyone wants to buy me that Warriors army, I will paint it up in a 24-hour paint-a-thon
for your viewing pleasure. But yeah, no, was it like 41 models? That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Can you get less?
Yeah, I think you can. I'd have to sit down and write one, but I think you probably can.
Well, 41's the challenge for anybody watching. If you can get any
B-Sets can probably do it, because you can take 9 raiding chariots as your core.
Sure.
And then minor warlords cost like all the points. Yeah, and then Gorgons cost all the points.
Buff them up.
It wouldn't be a very good army because you'd have no scoring. But.
But interesting nonetheless. So I mean, if you can do less than 41, then let us know. My man Tony, Fantasy Wargaming podcast, check him out. What's he got? Ancestor, another new choice, different from the thing. Is Luke Blacksword's the first chosen lord? It can't be.
Looks like it.
That's very good. Very good. Well done.
Oh no, Tony's got one.
Oh yes,
just
as well.
Before.
I stopped. You got to carry on reading, didn't you? In this game. But yeah. So yeah, no, a couple of chosen lords, but Tony's is on a Chimera, so that's quite cool.
And again, they're super different. Like if you look at the bottom of the list, Nick's got 2 Feldrak Elders. Tony's not got any monsters. Luke's got a Chimera running around. Same with the core. You've got 40 barbarians. You've got 20 warriors of lust. You've got an MSU lust core. So it just shows that the book does have a good internal balance. There's a few things there that haven't been represented. For example, like chosen chariots, but they were popular like 2 years ago, and that I don't think there's any chosen chariots ETC either. So it just seems like they've dropped off the face of the earth somehow.
Sure.
But again, it's a good internal balance. Most things represented.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you've said Nick is your favourite You're going to stick with that.
Yeah.
I quite like the double herald, but I'm going to go with spare player Chris Legg.
to win the event?
To win the event, I'm absolutely... I think he's got the commitment, the patience, and the passion for it. So, Leggy, you can have my vote. Probably second, just in case, you know. I got to back my man Tony. I'll back my man Tony. He had a good end to the UB stuff, so he's gonna carry it on. And I know he's doing some lovely paint jobs as well, so he'll come second to spare player Chris Legg. You heard it here first. And on that bombshell, we end our review of the list. Very, very well done if you've got to the end of this video. 1 hour 17 of us chatting utter supreme knowledge.
If you've got to the end of the video, you probably look like that knight there on the screen.
Yes, absolutely.
Just like exhausted, one hand on your hip, going...
No, absolutely. And so thank you very much for watching. Let's do a big old plug for your stuff. You've come back strong.
Yeah, I mean, I've been locked away for a week in isolation, and James is halfway through his summer holidays, so it seemed like a good time to pick it back up. We've done a bunch of shows recently, looking at some ETC lists, the Froome lists. We've looked at why beast herds aren't popular at the minute in Europe. They're very popular in the UK. It's a weird mix. Yesterday's episode / I'm so lost with the days from lockdown. Wednesday's episode was all about the Old World announcement that Games Workshop made and how that might affect the Ninth Age, and mine and James's personal opinions on it, which we know people don't necessarily agree with. It'll be going pretty regularly. It'll probably drop down to once a week or once a fortnight, once I'm out of isolation. But there's a whole bunch of new episodes for people to enjoy if they haven't. Yeah,
and say really, really good content. Go check him out. I'll put a link in the description. Okay, my brain's all frazzled. But yes, so thanks very much for coming on. Really, really good to get your expert opinion, and we can say that because you are the master, double master, triple.
Yeah. Well, potentially triple if you include Malifaux. But there's some lists that, I know people will have different opinions about different lists. We got asked the other day, it was Ali Parran that messaged me, and he was like saying, oh, you focus too much on the synergies and lists, and we addressed that on the podcast where I was saying, yeah, I probably do, but I think a lot of that is from like when I played Malifaux, lists were all like Malifaux crews were all about synergy, and that was sort of how you made the best crew. So everyone will sort of read lists in a different way, and hopefully either you've spotted a few things or learned a few things. You might well have spotted things that we've both missed along the way. So
yeah, and if you have, let us know in the comments. Put it down there. See if we've completely missed something so obvious, it's unbelievable. Let us know, and I'll be sure to tell Craig how he's missed it as well. I'll pass on those comments. But yeah, no. Otherwise, like, share, subscribe, tell all your friends, and go check out SlaanRat for sure by clicking on the link down below. Otherwise, thanks very much for joining. Thank you for joining.
Cheers for having me.
No, absolutely, anytime. If anybody does want to buy that Warriors list for Craig, he will certainly DM us. We'll sort that. But yeah, otherwise, until next time, we have got more Black Country Brawl content leading up to the event and on the day as well. So stay tuned and all that jazz. Otherwise, see you later.